Yeah, I think it should be live stream now. Because there's a gap between the app switch us to the YouTube and it says I see the image, so it always have a little bit of funny reaction and look at that. Are we in there? Oh, hello everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK monthly podcast. Today with me is Mandi and Marcos. Well, hello everyone. Hi Mandi. Hi Marcos. How are you?
Yeah, we're good. Well, I'm good. Speaking for myself, I'm very well, thank you. Despite the fact I look very pale on camera, I'm actually feeling really well. I
No,
do actually have a little bit of a slight tan as well on my face after a few days in Spain, which is lovely. But,
oh,
Yeah. Oh, you enjoy it. You like it,
yeah,
Barcelona?
right. Yeah,
Well, I would suggest next time we all go Barcelona to have a podcast together.
that
that'd
would
be
be amazing.
definitely.
Yay! Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
We all love Barcelona. Marcus, how are you?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No
yeah.
complaints. It's-
Before we start, have you read the news about England local election?
no, I haven't yet. I
Well,
haven't.
our Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says the result of a local election the results are disappointing. Or just see someone behind him. Oh, yeah, tough titty.
So meaning that the Conservatives have taken a bit of a kicking, which is perhaps not surprising, but yeah.
No, not surprising at all. Yes, but well, for what they have done to us for last many years,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think this is just a right amount of warning. Anyway, but we are not here to talk about politics, but I like it. Anyway,
Yeah, careful
so
though.
today our topic will try to cover as much as we can. And as we chatting a lot, so may not able to do that. We will try to fit in at least Mars in Aries because we all agree Mars in Aries should come first. If not, well, we should honor it. And then we may cover Pluto retrograde and the Taurus new one. So let's begin with Mars in Aries because this is a very interesting. I remember on Wednesday I was chatting with Leanne, and Leanne say, Mars in Pisces is just like a dragon, it's just like it's not working straight, and it's like always been called by something not really smooth, and now Mars is finally into Aries. It will be bang.
Hmm.
So, what do you think, Marcus?
Okay. Well, I mean, Mars in Aries is going to be the most direct and potentially powerful or effective form of Mars. But I always think Mars in his own signs, like any planet in their own sign, is just purely themselves. And that's for good or for bad. And obviously, generally, in their own signs, they're more effective and powerful. So Mars in Aries, it's great for things like motivation to, like the Nike logo, Mars, right? Just do it. It's just do it. That's it's great for that. So if you want to, I don't know, start a new exercise regime, it's just like bang, just do it. Now's the time. Now's the time. You might have a bit more impetus. So it's really good for that. But Mars being purely himself in the sort of in the fiery cardinal Aries, which is all about, looking, not looking before you leap, it's got the bad side of that Mars as well, which is really just Mars in Aries is a better warrior than it is a judge. So it tends to sometimes leap into fights without really thinking at all about the consequences. And I've had a couple of family members who have Mars in Aries, and I, as an Aries sun, I really enjoy them. I think it's great, but at the same time, they sometimes tend to um, get annoyed on behalf of people they love and literally will start a fight, just like, but it's like before they necessarily have all the facts at their disposal, let's say. So that's potentially the downside of this Mars. But so it might fire up um interpersonal conflicts if it's not handled well, but because it's in good dignity, the positive side of it is it's really great for motivation and for getting stuff done.
Thank you, Marcus. Monday, how do you see about the Mars in Aries?
Hi, yeah, very direct, isn't it? Like Marcus said, and it's a sign that it's a good Mars in Aries is very good for focus. So long as you only have to focus on one thing, that sort of direct focus, sort of just go in one direction and go in one direction fast. Obviously, as Marcus already said, it's, you know, it's about action and it's the warrior energy. Mars, the god, is the warrior, and Mars in Aries, like you just said, Marcus, it's not the strategist. Mars in Scorpio, which is another great sign, and another very dignified sign for Mars. Mars in Scorpio is a strategist, whereas Mars in Aries doesn't have time for strategy. I'm just repeating what you're saying in a different way, really, Marcus. Kind of said it all, but it's very direct energy. So under that energy, I think it's quite interesting to have Mars in Aries at the same time as a Taurus new moon, which is about, you know, sitting back and, you know, taking some time to relax and being in your comfort zone and all that kind of thing. And there is an aspect from Mars to the new moon, but we'll come to that when we look at the new moon.
Yeah. One thing draw my attention is like it was the early this week we have both Venus and Mars changing the sign, and they both back to home. Venus back to Venus back to Taurus, and Mars back to Aries. So how do we see these? When are they working together, or in another way, how they fit into each other? Because one will be relaxed, but one will be like go 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 go.
Yeah,
who want to start it? Mandi, Mandi started.
They both want to be themselves, right? You know, because they're in their own signs, they want to be their selves. I think Mars, Venus in Taurus is going to be more accommodating than Mars in Aries, but it's almost that archetypal sort of masculine, feminine energy. You know, we've got, if you think about the sensuality of Venus in Taurus and the sexuality of Mars in Aries, you know, there's that sort of, that kind of love language between the two. If we're looking at it from a relationship point of view, there's probably a lot that could go on there. Maybe not something that, you know, a spark there, maybe not something that would go on for a long time between those two. You know, Mars in Aries might get bored, whereas Venus in Taurus might get attached and find it hard to let go.
Such a tragedy.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, Marcus, what do you think?
I think I'd agree with Mandi there, because they're both dignified, and so you know, they could be. There's an interesting potential for some getting the positive motivation and drive of Mars and the sensual enjoyment of Venus. But as usual, I'm going to throw a fly in the ointment or spanner in the works, because, you know, I love doing that. So I think that's the positive. What you've highlighted there, Mandi, is the really positive potential, and I think that's what we should aim for, because I think both of those planets in their own signs is really good. But I always think about, because this really struck me when I was studying traditional astrology, the chart of, I mean, this is a really the worst example, right? But the chart of Jeffrey Dahmer. Because he, you know, the murderer, because he has Venus in Taurus and Mars in Aries, and now he has a lot of other stuff going on in that chart. That was not the description of what went on in his life. But the interesting thing is he's a Libra rising, much like another famous, like Adolf Hitler had Libra rising and Venus in Taurus, and he has Mars in Aries. And so the thing about those two planets is they are, because they're in their own signs, they're really into their own thing. But traditionally they'd be said to be in aversion to each other. They don't really have much point of contact, and they don't get on. But there is a potential bit of friction between the two. It really depends how it plays out, because you can see it playing out in better charts, or in people who channel it better, as having that combination that you're alluding to, Mandi, of this wonderful sensuality and the motivation side by side. And if I'm being really traditional and, you know, just looking at the, you know, mechanics point of view, there is a trine between Taurus and Aries through the Antitia, which is technical and whatever, but it just means they can potentially have a hidden friendly conversation with each other, even though the two signs are side by side. So in modern astrology, we'd say it's a semi-sextile. but in traditional, looking through the Antisha, because Aries reflects onto Virgo, and Taurus reflects onto Leo. So they actually have this hidden trine conversation. So I think there's potential for both. So I'm going to be the Debbie Downer on this one and just say the thing to look out for is to maintain the balance, to not allow too much physical indulgence to I don't know, like potentially like to not get too mired in that and I don't know, cause anger in other people because you're not doing your work or something like that, or just, you know, or not get too fired up in a cause and forget that sometimes you might just sit down and eat a nice biscuit and some ice cream or something and just, you know, just chill out, because it's like getting the balance right, I think, at the moment. But it's really, it's potentially fantastic having these two planets in their own signs at the same time, but there is that potential also for animus between them. So it's just being aware of that, I think. Yeah.
There's another quick thing as well while you were speaking, the idea that Mars in Aries initiates. Aries anyway, sign that initiates, whereas Taurus, it's the next sign along. So Taurus builds and maintains and possesses, you know, so there is that kind of thing. You could see that as teammates at work, so long as they had an understanding of each other, that that's your role in this team and my role in this team, and they're happy with that role.
Yes.
You know, there's that kind of get something started. You know, you
that's
can imagine
really,
Mars and Aries.
that's really nice. Yeah, I love that, Mandy. That's great. Sort of Aries,
you've got
kick it off.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that, especially
the salesperson, haven't you? You've got the salesperson there. You know, we might be more into Mercury and Aries here, but you've got that salesperson here who kind of initiates something and gets something done, and then they take a step back, and then the more Taurus energy is the energy.
You've just made me think of something there, Mandy. Just like, I mean, this might be a random analogy, but I've been since, I mean, this is interesting. I haven't noticed this. This is a personal observation. Since Venus went into Taurus, I've been seeing lots more beautiful people on my Instagram. I mean, Instagram's full of beautiful people, but I don't know. I've probably been clicking on more of them or whatever, but I've been seeing more of them. But I was just thinking it's a bit like a bodybuilder or somebody who's like, you start the motivation to go to the gym and to like do the exercise. And then the result of that is potentially feeling better about yourself, you know, looking good, yada, yada. So that's the potential way. I think what you just said, like the initiation, the energy, the go, and then you can move into enjoying the pleasure and sort of like having the results sort of thing, maybe something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
Beautiful. I know it's maybe 18 plus questions. Some audience ask, is that good time for intimacy?
Mandy, do you want to take this one? Or
no, we just ignore that. We just ignore that. I don't want to be banned. Let's ignore that question. Okay, go on. I'll move on.
Yeah, I agree with Mandy. Like literally any time. Don't let the stars tie your hands on that one, folks. Goodness me. But,
indeed. Okay, yeah, I agree with both of you. Especially, I like Mandy's a little bit like, I don't know, I maybe get the idea wrong, but there is kind of also working together and with like a little bit agenda, isn't it? It's like a Mars go first because you like go first, you knock the door, say all the things, and we are support, the whole team behind the support, smoothly make our plan happy. That is kind of the things. I did notice also. Like Marcus says, the both planets want the best of themselves, but somehow maybe they ignore another person. Also need some, space or some, comfort or some, or another one is like, I'm working. Hey, and I want to say, come on, just come to dance with me.
Yeah,
that is pretty interesting. Well, I think we can move to the next subject is about Pluto retrograde. I mean, Pluto is stationary at this moment, and it will turn direction, I think, from today or from yesterday, but it will still appear as a standstill. Marcus, I mean, is that okay for you to explain to us the different idea between stationary and the retrograde? Because I think a lot of beginner will maybe need a little bit of that information.
Okay, sure. So Obviously, a planet retrograde appears to move backwards, uh, sort of against the normal movement of the planets in the sky, and a planet that's stationing is appearing to stand still before it does that, and it's all because of the relative position of the planets in the sky to the sun, and because like the outer planets move so slowly, this happens a lot. So I think Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, they're retrograde for a lot of the time. um I don't know if you know figures, Mandy or Rod, like guys, but anyway, I'll leave that to you guys to if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
if you can
Mandy.
remember. I can't off the top of my head.
Few
um
months, I think. Yeah, each
okay,
year.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you, but
I don't I
it's
don't want to I don't
how
want to put a
long?
pin in it, but
No, no,
yeah.
no. I can't. I wouldn't want to venture a figure. I can't. I can't remember off
No,
the top of my head.
I think a lot of people have a different. I did ask several different astrologer. We all count in different way, and that was so
Oh,
funny.
oh,
Oh yes, oh
that's
yes.
interesting. Okay, okay. So there are actually different measures, but I guess it symbolically, the thing is when a planet is moving forward, things associated with that planet symbolically are progressing and moving
Mm-hmm,
forward in a sort of future-oriented, new things are happening with what that planet represents kind of way.
mm-hmm,
But when a planet stations, it's kind of like, so it means that sort of things of that planet are maybe, so say something tied to the symbolism of that planet.
yeah, yes.
Say with Pluto, maybe it's, I don't know, movements of underworld money or something like that. So you've had a load of transactions flying across the globe while Pluto's been going forward. When it stations, you might, so there might be a bit of a sort of standstill of like there's less movement in those markets or whatever it is. And then when Pluto goes retrograde, there's some correction. So when a planet goes retrograde, it's going
Mm,
against the apparent natural order of its movement. So it kind of, there has to be a correction, or maybe there's a going back over some previous thing. So retrogrades can be difficult in one sense because they can indicate, say you want to start a new thing to do with that planet, the symbolism of that planet. It may be better to wait if you can until it goes direct. If you can't, then things to do with that planet may be a lot harder because you just have to put a lot more work in. You have to go back over things. But often just in the world, they symbolize a revision or a retreading or a re-emergence. Re is just the retrograde prefix, isn't it?
mm,
So that's kind of, I'm sure there are other things to say, but I'll stop now.
yeah. Thank you, Marcus. Mandy, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just to add really that a planet, an outer planet in particular that's retrograde, when it is stationed, it is incredibly intense. So you take
Yes.
all the themes and the energies and the symbolism of that planet in that sign, and that just intensifies it. So for example, if you're having Pluto, for example, if you have anything early in the fixed sign, so Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, like very early degrees, you'll be having a Pluto transit at the moment. So if that station's retrograde, if it's station's retrograde, the closer it is to whatever it's transiting in your chart, the angle or the planet, that level of intensity will be peaking up. You might have already had one hit of Pluto going forward over that planet, and then it goes backwards. And as Marcus said, you get that almost that second chance. I think the way I find it easiest to explain it is in terms of a transit. So, for example, you'll often most likely get a 3-hit transit of an outer planet. Sometimes you might get a 1-hit, but it's usually 3. Sometimes you might even get a 5-hit planet, but the most common is to have a 3-hit transit, which means that planet goes over the transiting planet, in this case Pluto, goes over your natal planet or angle, then it retrogrades back over it, and then it goes over it a third time when it's direct again. And this is all about that process of the themes during it doesn't always work out like this, but it's a good way of sort of really thinking about it. The themes of that transit will come up at the first hit, then they might be repeated, or there might be time actually to process those themes, that symbolism, those events, those things that you might be going through psychologically or emotionally. And then there is the chance of, if you work with them consciously or even unconsciously, these transits, there's the potential there for resolution as the transit goes over its third hit. It doesn't always work out like that. Sometimes we're thrown curveballs, sometimes nothing happens on a transit, sometimes things happen at the beginning, sometimes sometimes, you know, it's processes, isn't it?
Yeah, you've said this before, man. You just said it again there. It's a process, as you've said, Mandy. I mean, it's like that, but I really like the standstill points are often like punctuation marks in that process sometimes. But it really, that the whole time a planet, like particularly one of those slower planets, is aspecting one of your planets, it represents a process. And with Pluto, my God, sometimes that process can feel like it's taken forever, but it should be heartening to know, as you pointed out, Mandy, that by the time of the third pass, it's usually on its way out. So,
well, it's Pluto is standing still on my Mars, so I'll let you know next time.
Okay.
Oh,
right. Okay.
Mandi, how about I invite you, let it out. Tell us.
Nothing to report here. Nothing going on here. Pluto is in his cave. He's in the dark at the moment.
Well,
he hasn't come out yet.
As you guys know, I had the Pluto opposition Mars last year and for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And it was oppositioning Mars and squaring Mercury and Venus in my chart, because I've got a Venus, Mercury, Mars square. And so that was very interesting. And that brought up lots of covert conflicts with people, like complaints from a patient and then later a student at work, lots of and lots of interesting reflections for me on the back of that, like, why am I attracting this sort of interaction? What am I not owning in myself that's causing me? And one of the benefits was that it caused me to reflect on I think probably what things that I'm angry about, that I sort of know that I'm angry about, but then with the Pluto Mars, you tend to meet that in other people. So one thing that's interesting about Pluto is it always exhumes and exposes things. So it brings things to the surface, and ultimately that is, or can be, for the good. But when you're going through it, you usually hang on to that thing like nothing else, because it feels like your survival depends on retaining the thing that Pluto is trying to force you to let go of. So it's the hardest thing in the world, because it's like, you know, when I was going through that Pluto Mars transit, I felt so angry all the time, and I still have some of that anger with me, but I'm kind of like, I'm still even now processing it. It's going to creep back into Capricorn and not quite do it again. So it's like the tail end of it. So all Pluto transits, I think, are very interesting in that regard, because they kind of they dig stuff up. And honestly, I think everybody's first reaction, well, I can't speak for everybody, but certainly mine, is to feel quite threatened and frightened, and so, depending on what planet it's hitting, angry, disturbed in some way. And then to feel like you must sort of hang on to that thing, because it's often asking you to let go of something. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
I actually have a story which I might share. It's a bit gross. It is actually something that happened with regarding this transit. It's a little bit gross. I do warn you. Trigger warning.
Trigger warning for the audience. Yes.
Trigger warning for the audience. So I caught a vomiting bug, the norovirus. I don't know whether I've never had it before. It's horrendous. It only lasts a few days, but it's absolutely horrendous. And as I was about to be sick, I passed out. I literally knocked myself unconscious, woke up covered in my own sick with a head injury. I'd banged my head, you know, Mars head. Wow. I banged my head on the way down, and somehow I had no memory. I was totally unconscious. And it was really quite scary and unpleasant, obviously, as you can imagine. But what was really interesting was it felt like it was a purging, obviously, because I was being sick.
Yeah.
But it also, there was, on one level, it did feel, the whole thing, unpleasant as it was, did feel like an emotional purging as well at the same time. It felt like a lot of stuff kind of came out, like a cleansing, like a purging, which is very kind of Plutonic, like this toxicity in my body.
And the
just
way it happened as well,
yeah.
that sort of volcanic, like you're being seized by the god of the underworld. You were literally
wow,
like purged and knocked out at the same time, and then afterwards you have this
he took me down with him and wanted me out of the way, and
you had a full Persephone experience there, Mandy. I mean, that's incredible.
The full Persephone experience, and I've had Persephone experiences before actually, but what's really interesting as well is that I'm going to be even more gross now. I hope you guys don't mind, but when I woke up, a lot of the sick was still in my mouth and up my nose, and luckily I woke up in what was kind of on my side, not on my front, on my back, and and it's funny. There's a really dark. I think there's a really dark sense of humor that can sometimes come with Pluto. My first thought, and it was a very conscious thought, is like, oh, before I realised what had happened, I was like, oh, or where I was, it was like, oh, well, why have I got a mouthful of food? And then I'm like, have I been sick?
Oh,
sorry, audience.
I'm really sorry.
But there's nothing
really sorry.
I want to demonstrate that there's nothing, that first of all, to reassure our viewers, it's that you're not going to get literally knocked out, and this is a very unique experience for me. But secondly, there's a sense of have a sense of humor about it as well. I think
and that's amazing, Mandy, that you had that reaction, and I think you pointed out something really useful there, which is with Pluto transits in different ways, you can feel a bit Pluto Mars, you can feel violated is one of the words that I felt. It's very violating, like you feel violated in different ways. And with other Pluto transits, you can often feel, because Pluto, like the myth that we're referring to, is like getting dragged down to the underworld. Hades abducts Persephone and whatever. But I think the result that you alluded to, which was that afterwards you felt purged. Like sometimes that is the bit that you kind of have to get to. So one of the best blogs, because I have a sun, as you guys know, because I talk about it ad nauseam, but like I've got my sun, moon, Pluto T-square in my birth chart. So I live with my own inner Pluto saboteur constantly. So one thing, the most helpful blogs, and I know you guys have both got moon Pluto aspects as well, haven't you? I know. Yes, exactly. So we're all intimately familiar with those kinds of shenanigans. But I think one of the best blogs I read years ago was just some random, I can't even remember the astrologer's name, which I'm really sorry about because it was such a good blog. It wasn't anyone I'd heard of before, so it was so insightful. Lady, American lady, I think. But anyway, she said something about the thing to do with a Pluto transit is the first one to let go wins. And she was talking about a moon Pluto thing. But it's like, that's the kind of thing you have to, the sooner I can let go of this thing. And she said, it's like a rubber band. If you let go, it'll snap back and hit the other person. So you don't need to worry about if you're involved in some kind of Plutonic with somebody, you don't need to worry about, but if I do this, they'll get, because that's the way that it can hook you in sometimes. It feels unfair, just let go. The sooner you let go, the better, but it's easier said than done sometimes. But the purpose is to get to where you got there, Mandy, where you might wake up covered in sick and a bit battered, but you feel a lot better, so yeah.
I write the name, I think he's
Thank you, Mandy, to share this. But I know,
sorry, guys.
you enjoy. No,
great, really good.
I have to say thank you, Mandy, to share this, and I know that whole process wouldn't be easy. But you use the Pluto, another side of Pluto, the sense of humor, to deal with it. Somehow, we all share that kind of experience, because I think in such a difficult time, humor, I think, is one of the power to decide how we deal with that challenge, to be honest. For example, like Marcus say about that slapping thing that I just experienced whole weeks during this time. And honestly, today we see I don't have many work, but I just constantly reply the email, planning the course, and writing email to all the astrologer I'm going to invite to give a talk or something. By the afternoon, I was exhausted. At first time, just like, you know what? I want to go to sleep. I want to have a nap because I just feel like I was swimming for a whole week or something. I was like, I don't know why I'm just exhausted. I was just exhausted. And then that is the feeling. I mean, the Pluto is changing the direction, and then really we are struggling. We're changing the direction. The huge Titanic are going to stop, and the changing the direction. That is take a lot of
Yeah.
effort. I
Is
think.
is is
Yeah.
it hitting a? I know it's hitting sensitive point in your chart, Mandy. Is it hitting a sensitive point in your chart, Rod, as well?
I don't think so, unless that would
Okay.
be some in the traditional technique of maybe antisha or something. I have
Okay, I
noticed
don't.
yet,
I
but
don't know. Don't
but
know. Don't.
no,
Don't
no,
but
I don't
I.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a planet around the early degree, but when you move back, it will hit my Jupiter.
Okay. Yeah. No. And
Yeah.
it's still going to have that collective thing. And this week we did briefly have a Venus Pluto square. I
Yes.
think so. Which I don't think it hit any one of us directly. Um,
Mm,
but because it doesn't quite hit any points in any of our charts. Or maybe it did you,
yeah.
Mandy. Might have done you. Might maybe.
Yeah, I didn't notice anything in particular, to be
Okay.
honest. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
You don't always, as
yeah.
you were saying with the transits, because they're part of a process sometimes, and
Yeah.
particularly with the Venus being involved, it might even have leavened things up a bit, just lightened it up, even if it is by a square or an opposition. Sometimes a dignified Venus can be helpful. So, but yeah.
So,
Anyway,
yeah, should we over a little bit like a practical tip or maybe some suggestion for our audience how we handle these retrograde if that really hit them hard.
well, I mean, I'm going to be short on this one because
Yeah, please.
mainly because I don't really, having said all that about the retrogrades and their significance, I really only apply that significance to individuals when Pluto is tightly aspecting something in their chart. So
Sure.
collectively, sure, but Pluto's always going retrograde for ages. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a personal enough. It's not a personal planet.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
probably I don't know if I can give any specific personalized advice except what I've just said about maybe if it's hitting your chart, that thing about whoever lets go first wins, and just, remember that at the end of the day, it's trying to help you let go of something, and the thing that you're most feeling like you want to hang on to for grim death because it's going to kill you if you let go of is probably the thing that's asking you to let
Yeah.
go of. So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Thank
but
you.
other than that, not really.
Thank you, Marcus. Mandy?
Yeah, the same really. I think Pluto can sometimes feel like a fight for survival at some level, whether that's not
Yeah.
necessarily physical, but sort of emotional or whatever, or psychological survival. And just to think of that process, exactly what Marcus has said, what do you need to let go of? And I'm not talking about physical, so please don't get me wrong.
Hmm.
Anyone who's listening, I'm talking about literal survival, about death. We've been talking a little bit about hell and the
Yeah,
underworld.
that's
It's all
thank you, Mandy. Yeah,
symbolic,
that's a very, very good point. Yeah, yeah.
but there's something often about the loss of innocence with
Oh.
Pluto. Like in some way, we are, when we have, again, when it's a personal transit, like Marcus was saying, there's something about the loss of innocence. We are exposed to something darker, whether
Mm.
that's in our own psychology or out in the world or through the relationships. This is why Pluto is to do with power. It's also to do with abandonment as well. So that idea of clinging on to things might be, for some people, a fear of, or to other people, a fear of abandonment, or a fear of not abandoning yourself. So there's just a few little ideas. I mean, we could talk, so for example, with a client who's having a Pluto transit, you could take the whole of the 90-minute session to talk about it, and there's not much, we can't really say.
I
I agree with Mark, can't really say much too
Yeah.
personal here.
Specifically, yeah,
I
but
agree.
I really like that, Mandy, and I could throw in another anecdote, but I won't, because it's just like we've got, because yeah, no, when you're saying about abandonment and whatever, I realized, for anyone who's familiar with astrocartography, I
Yeah.
discovered, or local space, which is a
Mm-hmm.
variant of astrolocality astrology. My Pluto line, I discovered, was going through that. I was sent to boarding school at the age of 7, which was not a
Oh.
pleasant experience. Some people claim to enjoy boarding school. I question their
Mm-hmm.
sanity, but okay, cool. But I was sent there at 7, and that school, it turned out, was exactly on my Pluto line,
Wow.
Oh,
it changed my life in all sorts of ways.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
some, I'm sure, good, some not so good, but what you were saying, Mandy, about being the abandonment thing, but also the piece about, you know, perhaps in others, perhaps in ourselves, encountering the darkness. I think it's always both. Pluto, some of the things that you can encounter, things that make you feel contaminated in some way, and I think what makes one feel contaminated about those contacts is the fact that you have to encounter some aspect of your own shadow, because in encountering something in others, the loss of innocence you were talking about is always, that's what loss of innocence is, right? You can no
Mm-hmm.
longer regard yourself as a pure thing anymore, because of
Mm-hmm.
what has happened, but also what's come up in you. So
Mm.
it's very interesting. But I mean, I don't know if we're going to move on to anything else, Rod, or if we want to wrap up, or whatever.
I am going to decide to move on.
Right. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Because this is. I mean,
Yeah,
we've got
let's
really
let
into
go.
Pluto, and this is just
Let
like,
go.
it's
Let
literally just
go.
turning backwards, folks. It's not like.
It's got us in our grip. We need to let go.
Yeah, who decide first, let go, who win, right? Now we move on. So the next, well, look for the future, because next week, only Wednesday, is our new moon, Taurus new moon, and I think I'm quite excited about it, because right next to that new moon is Jupiter and the Uranus. And another side, well, it's a little bit far, but the Venus is 8 degrees away. So, well, I don't know who want to start, but before I share the chart, uh, Monday, you want to start with?
Yeah. Oh, here comes the chart. Yeah. So we've got new moon in
Yeah, here we are.
Taurus here. You can see on that chart, unless you're in London, you can ignore the houses. But
Yeah.
18 degrees of Taurus. So if you've got anything sort of around sort of 16 to 20 of Taurus, or the fixed signs in your chart, then you'll have that direct sort of transit. It's obviously a passing transit. The moon moves very fast, and the sun moves like a degree a day. But we have this new moon. And as I always say, I always repeat this whenever we talk about the new moon, it's a time of the dark of the moon. We're in the dark of the moon now. The moon's getting darker. It's the darkest time of the moon. So it's that time to sort of rest and relax and take comfort. The moon in Taurus, we've talked about planets in dignity. The moon is dignified in Taurus. It needs to feel comfortable. It likes to find its comfort zone, which is interesting that it is conjunct the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. We've talked a lot about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in previous podcasts. It's energy that's excitable, it's adventurous, it's about the new, it's about all that kind of thing. So there's that kind of, perhaps there's a little bit of tension, and I mean just a little bit of tension to be found perhaps in this new moon of like, yeah, I need to rest. We are needing rest around the new moon, but there might be that thing, oh yeah, but I've got this, I want to do this. So it's perhaps a time to rest and maybe take yourself to that still point, because Taurus likes to stay still. You know, it's not one for sort of moving very fast. So take yourself to that still point to be able to get into the place where you can come up with ideas, set intentions for the adventures to come. I mentioned briefly that there is a aspect from the moon in Aries that we talked about at the top of this podcast. It's a semi-square aspect, so it's a 45-degree aspect. It's like a half square, so it's kind of mildly irritable. So there's another sort of little source of irritation there. There might be that pull to act, to do something, but the moon is really telling us to sort of, just maybe wait. I mean, the impatience of Mars in Aries comes up against the endless patience of all this Taurus energy. That said, I think a lot of us have had such an intense April with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction when it was exact, with the very powerful solar eclipse in Aries. So it is a gentler month, I think, May. And I think May is a month really, and starting at this new moon, or even the lead up to this new moon, it's a time really to sort of consolidate. It's a time to sort of integrate and rest a little bit. There's no
thank you, Mandi. Marcos.
Either.
Yeah. Thank you, Mandi.
No oppositions in this chart either. It's a time for you. It's me time.
I really like that, Mandi, and I agree 100%. And I just to add a few little tidbits to that. There's the sextile from the new moon to Saturn in Pisces. So just to build on what you were saying there, Mandi, about this sort of being a time for rest and sort of like just regrouping a bit and all of that, because all that stuff in Taurus is very practical, but also has lots of possibility and potential, because we've got both Venus and Jupiter with that new moon on either side of the new moon in Taurus. It's like there's a lot of potential here for practical new beginnings, for things like building wealth, or if you've got a garden, for like sowing seeds and planting new crops. You know, you could have a really good fruit harvest in 6 months' time, you know, something like that. So think of it in terms of the bounty of the earth or the body or whatever. So this would be, and the sextile to Saturn is kind of like, okay, you've got these dreams, now limit them, edit them down to a form that you can do something, and just think about beginning. So you could just take it easy at the new moon, but this is like, okay, you could sow some seeds mentally, and maybe start also leveraging them. So some of those seeds, leveraging the Mars in the sense that Mars, it wants you to take action. So at the new moon, rest, take it easy, but just start thinking about what things you could do that would bring more pleasure in. So this new beginnings could be literally crops or growing stuff. It could be for earning more money or for saving more money. It could be, I don't know, like I've already talked about bodybuilding. If you want to start a new fitness kick at the gym, it could be starting to define your goals in terms of being beach body ready in a few months' time, or some whatever, anything to do with that Taurus physical, sensual thing, that sextile to Saturn, saying there's potential here now for thinking about what practical outcomes you want with body or food or things of the earth, or practical things, and visualizing them and making a beginning. And that beginning should be pretty auspicious. Just something like that. And the only fly in the ointment I'll mention, I don't know, Rod, you may want to speak about this more, is Jupiter is on the star Algol, which is kind of a bit of a crazy star. and
I know, yeah.
But it's good for wealth. Algol, one of the only things that Algol is kind of good for is money, and Jupiter's about money as well. So if you've got any new schemes for earning money that are practical and maybe a bit out of the box because Uranus, but not too crazy, no Ponzi schemes, please, but like any new sort of things, you could maybe use this time to think about starting them. I don't know, something like that.
Well, I'm just going to thank you for both this beautiful interpretation of the new moon, and it already makes me feel very relaxed and soothing, because for last month I chasing the solar eclipse and was exhausted. That's how I feel it today. But to be honest, the way you talking about the Taurus new moon with the Venus and with the Saturn is just like, oh, okay, it's time to a little bit take a step back and just rest and grow the things, let it grow, the seeds already planted, and we just grow it. I want to respond Marcus talking about Algol. To be honest, this is a fixed star. I know most astrologer, to be honest, that doesn't matter traditional or modern psychological astrologer. I always talk about this fixed star as a most evil one. I'm so pleased that Marcus talking about it. It's a good sign of it, which is true. And especially for me, I'm kind of a little bit extreme to go to fixed star doesn't give good or bad. They are quality. They are virtue. I like to see them because Greek mythology, our soul comes from the fixed stars. So there is the virtue there. There is their quality there. And but yes, there's a quality that's just how you see it, how you apply it. Well, and I know a lot of astrologer, according William Lilly, this is the most evil stars related to murder, lost head, cut head, or something, which it could be make you lose your mind, or stop breathing, or like take your breath away. But when we say take your breath away, it's that kind of stunning, isn't fascinating, stunning. So what I think I agree with Dr. Bernadette Brady's interpretation of this one is a primal female creative energy, or you just simplify primal creative energy. I would like that. Doesn't matter male or female. It's a primal. It's brutal. It's brutal. It's direct. It's not holding back. It's just like, I want to make it happen. And so that's one way. Another way, couple months ago, I would discuss about a similar theme with another astrologer. And we both feel the story in the mythology, the story of a Medusa, she's a little bit scapegoat. It's not her fault, but she was caught between the fight of Athene and Neptune, Poseidon. So she's kind of being victimized. And maybe that part of the story can be with when Jupiter align with Argo, and Jupiter may release it. Jupiter may help you to transcend. I know Jupiter is not totally transcend, but at least it raise up. It maybe bring you some wisdom through the unpleasant experience. Doesn't matter. Is lost your rational mind, or lost your head, or lost a lot of things, or have unpleasant experience, or going between something. What I would think is it is a very rich and powerful creativity energy that we can apply. That's how I read it.
Yeah, just a thought on that, Rod, because I mean, again, this is like, it's Jupiter's close to Algol for a couple of weeks, so it's not like a central theme here, but it's just interesting because it's like otherwise, like all of those planets in Taurus are really helpful, right? So but it's just it adds an interesting extra flavor or spice to that Jupiter. I don't know if this is right, but when you were talking about the Medusa and a positive spin on it, I was thinking about Athene's shield. And the Athene's shield has Medusa's head on it, right? And it had an apotropaic function, or a function of warding off evil, much like medieval gargoyles did. So the function of the scary chthonic image is actually just a function of warding off evil. So it may be that what you're saying about it's one half of finding some resolution potentially with Jupiter and Algol to something that might make you a bit crazy, but it could also be that in the experiences that kind of made you a bit crazy, or in going through those scary things, you learn how to ward things off. You learn the things that help you to handle, because Jupiter's all about judgment, it's about resolution, and physically it helps the faculty of digestion. So it's like assimilating some of those crazy making things and turning them around into things that can make you, if not bulletproof, then a lot more resilient in some way, potentially. I don't know, but yeah.
Oh, no, I like this idea. I like this idea.
I don't know if that's right.
But
that's just like.
I mean, hey, it's a fixed stars. I mean, it's hanging there. It's only us to give an interpretation.
Maybe,
It's interesting as well, because we're going into the realms of the ancient gods here, aren't we? The classical gods, and it's that idea of you don't look. I know Medusa wasn't a god, but she was part of that Olympian theme.
God adjacent,
yeah, god adjacent. That's it. But you don't look her in the eye, just like you don't look God in the eye, and it's almost like you can only see her safely by reflection, because the light is so bright with some of these gods, or in Medusa's case, it's so dark and scary. but you don't want to look it in the eye, and that was how she was eventually slain, I think, by, I can't remember the name of the
Perseus, I think. Was it
Perseus,
Perseus?
yeah,
Perseus.
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
And he slayed her by sort of, he saw her reflection. He looked at her reflection rather than actually looking at
The
her. And
shield. Yeah.
the shield, maybe there's something about seeing a reflection of some of the things that you don't want to see in yourself. I don't know, maybe we're going too deep here, but just a few little thoughts about
No,
how
it's
No,
it's,
I
it's
like.
interesting, isn't it? Because it's like if anything's going to bring out a positive side of that star, it would, I would assume, be Jupiter. So yeah,
an
yeah,
Yeah.
opportunity. It always brings
mm,
an opportunity, doesn't it?
yeah,
And luck
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
sometimes,
Yeah.
if you're
yeah,
lucky.
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, Mandy and Marcus. I mean, this is so interesting and in-depth discussion, especially we all eventually involved with the mythology and how that inspires us with this Jupiter. Maybe we are a little bit frightened, more or less, but with that Jupiter give us a little bit of hope, and now we have a wisdom to deal with if that is a challenge. But if not, I mean, this month with the Taurus new moon, I like that. The next to the new moon is Jupiter, Uranus, and also sextile with Saturn. That give me a little bit grounded feeling. It is a whole month in the with the solar eclipse in the Aries. We are just like running the maybe
It's
100 meter.
it's great, isn't it? I think this is such a nice month, actually, for you
Yeah.
know. Thank God, we've got a little island of sanity, which is
Yes.
great. So, yeah,
And
Yeah,
don't
I
forget,
agree.
and don't forget, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is all about forward leaps and paradigm shifts, and taking that time to rest. And I think one of you just said about grounding yourself is a great foundation for that. Taurus is very good for sort of laying the foundation so that you can leap off a solid place rather than leaping off something soft.
Yeah.
nice.
Wow. Thank you so much. Well, I mean, before we say goodbye, I have a commercial time. Don't change it. Don't run away. Okay, because from this month, from May, we have 3 interesting webinar coming up. I just sent out the invitation and the email today. So I'm here going to share with everyone, and especially for our friend who on our mail list already received a huge discount. So please let us know if you're interested. And if you want to join our email list, please let me know. So the first one is on the Saturday, 18th of May. And I will give a workshop about astro Fengshui, well, which is Marcus just mentioned about it. I think he didn't know I prepared this. Marcus didn't know. So local space map. So I'm going to explain what the basic idea is about local space map. It can apply to your house, your town, and your relationship with around the world. So this is only 18th of May. Well, more interesting is the 8th of June. I invite our dear friend from the Mandi and Astrology discussion group, Luiza Azancot, from famous astrologer from Lisbon. She is going to talk about the family astrology. This is a beginner suitable. So if you are beginner astrologer and you really want to understand how to unpack family themes in your chart, this is a great opportunity, okay? And it's just £20, and a great astrologer going to leading you to unpack the family theme in the chart. Well, the last one, I mean, today I just talked with one of my friends. She said, when every time I'm reading about a question of astrology, half kind of it is career and another half kind is about relationship. So we cannot talk about relationship, So this is a interesting topic. Margaret Gray going to talk about what rather than who. I like this topic. What rather than who? Usually we are just like, who will be my lover? Who will be my, loved one? But he is going to go into the psychological astrology to unpack that our need in a relationship. So doesn't matter who is there. It's what you want what you need in a relationship. This is a very interesting topic. For 3, this one would be on the 6th of July. So for all the 3 webinar, again, our if our friends join the mail list already received, is only £45, but each one is £20. Okay, so please go to our website, simplify AOAUK.co, AOAUK.co, and I have a special guest coming in August. Sue Tompkins.
Hey!
Yay! We love her. So Sue will be our guest speaker in August. So I'm really looking forward. She's going to bring our beginner astrology, how to do the chart integration.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, thanks everyone. Thanks Mandi and thanks Marcus to be here to share your wisdom, your observation, and the astrology tip. And thanks everyone to stay with us. Well, I will. Next week is the mundane astrology discussion, and we definitely have a lot to talk about. With all around the world, with economy, Bitcoin drop, and the UK election, must be a lot of things to talk about. See you next week and stay in tune. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.